Hello peoples, guys and gals, cats and dogs, everybody who likes to watch. So we got another shipment. Two more of these lovely red, very well padded Toman big bags, and another B-stock guitar special. Because obviously there's something wrong with it, but we're not going to know what that is until I open it up and try to find out. It doesn't look like it's the headstock this time. Whew. So, when this first came out, I fell in love with the color, but they were too expensive to go and get. But when it came out as a B, I thought I'm going to take a chance on this HB 35 Plus Metallic Plum. Metallic Plum. Alright, that works. Yes, indeed. Definite. What did I get on the carpet again? Oh, little desiccants in these bags. They're broken and they get all over my carpet. Ow, and then they get me in the knee. Alright, so there's a definite joint, you know, right there that you can see, and it's feelable. That might be it. The rest of the back is very good in this light. Back of the neck is very good in the neck. Up to the headstock. I see the scarf. I can read made in China. One of the stickers is removed from the tuner, so this obviously was a return. Now, some folks have been telling me that the tuners are not so good. But you know, oh, that one's very slack. I'll have to check that one. Might be just a button, but I don't feel any slack in the gearing. I can feel it both ways, so not so bad. I was going to buy a set of locking tuners for it. They'll save me 35 bucks. Okay, so what's the front look like? Pretty good. Don't really like the look of those knobs. They just don't seem to fit this guitar very well. You know, color schemes. The action is very high on this one. There is space to bring it down by at least 1/4 of an inch on this side and 3/8 on that side. The tailpiece is at the bottom, and I noticed that they had kind of a very thin, small tailpiece on this. It's very small. It's less of a mass than the standard tailpiece. Very small, very thin. It's thin in thickness and thin in width this way. Just noticing that now, but what I did notice was that they had these rounded head screws on it, and I'm thinking, that's usually the sign of a low quality hardware. And I would say that these are low quality hardwares, both the tailpiece and the bridge. The tuners, however, seem okay at the moment. The switch feels good. Let's see what's going on with that. Okay. There's a little bit of noise in that one. Rough. It's very rough, and also very rough. And it's in the pot, it's not the knob. These pots on the push-pull are not making rough sounding noises. Alrighty guys, the fretboard is supposed to be a Jatoba. The headstock does not have any problems with it this time. The nut is about the same color as the binding, which is sort of a vintage white color. If I have to end up changing that for a new bone or a tusk, it's going to be a slightly brighter, whiter color. Roswell pickups, the plastic is gone already. Even the screws on this bridge are Phillips, and the screws themselves are not very nice, and the screw for, let me see if I can get you up to this, the screw for the low E is actually hanging out of the bridge, and it's been adjusted pretty much all the way back with a minor bit in there. And there's something in the threads of these two, that one and that one, in front of the saddle. Oh, I think it's in all of them. It's probably a screw retainer that has come loose. So yes, extremely cheap tailpiece hardware. Now, for the price of the guitar that they're asking for this, they really should have a little bit of at least a mid-class, if not an upper-class bit of hardware on it. Because, I mean, they want, in Canadian dollars, they want $300. And it varies a little over 300. I've seen these as some of these. This color apparently is not very popular, so it's priced lower than the others. But some of them are like up to $358 Canadian. This pickguard is very cheap. It's going to have to come off. Yeah, so the kind of price range that they put these in, no. They should have better hardware. So, that's my opinion. Sticking to it. And I like that on this model, this version of a 335 copy, that the jack is down here and not up there. Up there, like it is on my original Firefly 335. I can see the wiring harness in there. There seems to be lots of wire from the pickups just in the back there. Now, since they've already got the push-pulls in here, that's great. That means that the only thing I'm going to have to probably look at is, are they independent? And if not, then I have to change one wire, well, two wires on each one of the pods. Swap pins 1 and 2, and that makes them independent. That's about the only thing I have in my head that I would want to do with this one, is to make sure the pickups are independent. I am hoping that these Roswells are as good as some of my others, or all of my others actually. And we shall go from there. So we'll give it a touch up and a tiny preliminary setup downstairs on the bench, and then we'll see what the sounds come out of it like with the ampy. Alright, to the bench. Okie dokie, after a brief session at the bench behind me. I took off the pickguard right away because I noticed underneath that the screw that they put through the top was touching the surface, and I was worried about how big it was going to make a scar, but there's a tiny little pip there, barely noticeable. And yeah, as par for the course with all the rest of the hardware that's on this thing, cheapy, cheapy, cheapy. Now what else I noticed when I was over there was that the frets are not bad, right? This is the first guitar I've gotten from Harley Benton where the fret ends are all not bad. They're pretty good, actually. They're grody. You can hear them a lot, and the strings are also corroded. So somebody had this for a bit because there's oxidation built up on the covers, which I am able to get off with some wax. Apparently I tested that. I also was looking at the nut and I found a small chip right here on the corner beside it. It is plastic. So except for the tuners on this guitar, and the pickups, hopefully, all the other hardware, you know, like these two pieces and the posts. So yes, forgot to mention, when I was lowering the bridge, I was trying to lower the treble side, and I'm turning the screw and nothing's happening. The post in the body underneath is turning with the set screw. So those posts are also very low mass, is what I could say. They're very tiny and very low mass. I do have posts. Presumably they are going to be bigger to go with the new bridge and saddle, and they will take up a little bit more space than the holes that are already drilled there, hopefully. And then I'll get this to work okay. So what I was starting to say was that except for the tuners, which only the B has a tiny little bit of slop in it, which is acceptable, it's working okay. This whole guitar, from a build perspective, is not as good as the original Fireflies that came out 5 years ago, like the red one that I have. The bones of it are really good. The finish was good except for the swirls and stuff I had to fix. That was probably, you know, chafing inside a box. But I had to replace all the hardware, including pickups, including electrics. So I kept everything except I kept the tailpiece on the Firefly. I won't be keeping that one. So yeah. So the nut, like I said, is plastic. So I'm gonna, and you know, even though it's plastic, it's cut pretty good for height over the first fret. I would take that as okay for me. Acoustically, it's playing okay. I haven't adjusted the truss rod. It's looking pretty okay for now. The neck hasn't had a chance to tension up just yet. What am I looking for? Yeah, mouse. Let's go to the 65 Deluxe and see what I get for sound. So all the knobbies are up. I hear something. So we're on the bridge, full up. Down. That does not disappoint. Pull it. So like my CST 24T, this is probably wound exactly the same way. It's a little bit thin on the split, and it can use a Fralin resistor. It's either a 1K or up to a 2.2K on the second on the split part of the coil to keep a little bit of that up so that it doesn't thin out as much. on the split. Let's try that, the tone control. It's working, even though I can hear the inside of it. Alrighty, necky. Ah. Yeah, it sounds okay. Good for that jazzy stuff that I don't do. Let's split it. I often use it split. Yes! Beautiful split. Yes, beautiful split. They have a different capacitor on this one. What else helps the neck is also a treble bleed circuit in the humbucker position. Just brings it a little brighter. Okay, the famous test of independent or not independent. Not independent. So, that's something that will have to be corrected. I don't know why they started wiring guitars like that. It diminishes the capacity of the instrument to give you a little bit more control. So it is dirty all over. It'll need to be fully cleaned up and waxed. The fretboard itself is not dry. Somebody may have oiled it when they had it. Maybe they did something about the fret ends too, if there was a problem. The strings are corroded somewhat. The frets are very corroded. So there's work to do. The neck angle from the body is angled back like that. And with the bridge down, I can see that I'm getting a pretty good run across there. I can see that the taper, the bow in the neck is starting to come in with the tension, and a trusty rod adjustment for my liking should take care of that. So I'm happy with the pickups. Electrics are okay except for the volume control wiring. It's just not that hard to do. They're right here. And the nut, putting the new nut in there will cause me to keep these strings on there in order to make sure it's recut at the proper height. I'm going to try to jury rig something to get this to go down where I need it, so that if I get it down here, then I can actually make sure the nut is cut properly. So when I get to working on this guitar, it's going to be nut first, and then it'll be working on the posts and taking off that hardware and getting rid of it, doing the other stuff. It's not going to be that much work this time to replace that stuff. Famous last words. We'll make it look nice. It'll sound nice when I'm done with it. So it seems okay. Everything's tight. The other thing I noticed is that let me turn that off. Since the jack is on the bottom side, no jack plate here. I know they don't have one on the front of a 335, but down here I'm thinking this curvature could have lent itself to a jack plate, and that would, when you're trying to get your, up here you can see it, but down there you're usually fiddling for it. You can put your finger on it and find the jack plate, and then you can find the hole. not having that little plate here, you can end up, with just scratching it if you have to turn it up every time, plug it in, and do it. If you want to keep your guitar in, pristine condition. Okay, so I wanted to insert this since I talked about the Firefly. So here's the new Benton, and here's my original Firefly. Okay, so from a size perspective, they're pretty much exactly the same physical size. The width, the thickness, I'd say the same. The neck is pretty much the same, except for how they put it together. I'll turn that in a second. Of course, I changed the knobs, and I kept the pick guard on this one because it was bigger. It was a multiply, and I figured it would protect the front as much as it could, and the hardware is not scratching the front of the guitar. Of course, I changed the bridge, kept the tailpiece. Now see, this one came with the right size tailpiece and the right kind of screws 5 years ago. It came with a bone nut. Didn't have to change that. I did change the electrics because I put in push-pull pots that it didn't have. Now, from the neck perspective, they're put together somewhat just differently. Right? This neck has a huge heel here, which fits in at this joint piece. And this has a much smaller heel that goes inside. See, the binding stops on this one, and the binding goes around underneath it on that one. So the neck joint is a little bit different. But seriously, the neck on the Firefly is smaller. This one's a little bit wider, feels a little bit chunkier, and it's heavier up there. Now the other thing is that there's a weight difference. The Benton is slightly heavier, and I think that's probably because they put a mahogany block in the center, and this one had a spruce, if I remember, which is a considerably lighter, denser wood. So yes, and this came in at $140 American. Of course, I spent more than that on it in the end, but I made it a really good 335 copy now. This one will be a nice copy as well when I'm done. Thanks for watching the first segment, and we'll catch you in part 2.